During July, I watched the second season of House of the Dragon and really enjoyed it. It feels like only crap has been coming out lately, so it was nice to have something of quality to look forward to every week. However, as most people know by now, the finale was somewhat underwhelming. Despite several well-written scenes, this was probably the weakest episode of the season, because the second half of the episode was pretty dumb. A lot of people are now complaining that the episode didn't have a battle or something epic like that. While I agree that the series finale should have been much better, it somewhat reminds me of the situation with the Witcher Netflix show. When Netflix was creating the second season, they decided to completely deviate from the source material because Blood of Elves, which the season was supposed to adapt, doesn't really have many epic set pieces in it, and there isn't any bombastic climax. The last chapter is just about Ciri meeting Yennefer in the Temple of Melitele. Ciri hates her at first, but then they start to like each other more and more, and it grows into the mother-daughter relationship everybody knows from The Witcher 3. It ends with them leaving the temple, and I think that the evolution of their relationship is an interesting enough ending for the book, but Netflix clearly thought that it's not epic enough because they invented Voleth Meir, so they could create this artificial drama between Ciri, Geralt and Yennefer, and also give them some main villain of the season which they could fight and defeat in the finale. It completely ruined the characters and story. They had to cut out the best part with Yarpen Zigrin and the Scoia'tael attack on the military convoy, and it just created a slew of problems because they were messing with the source material like they've been doing since the first season. So while I agree that the finale of the second season of House of the Dragon should have been better written, I don't want screenwriters and filmmakers to hear the complaints from fans that there should have been a battle or some more epic climax and take a wrong lesson from it, that the season always has to end with a bang. I think it's very limiting for storytellers if they can't take a unique approach to how stories should be told. They can end with just two characters bonding, and if it's well written and compelling enough, it's fine by me. Another thing I wanted to talk about in regard to the second season of House of the Dragon is Daemon's storyline at Harrenhal. A lot of people complained about the scenes where Daemon has hallucinations, saying they were boring, didn't advance the plot, and that the entire storyline was unnecessarily drawn out. I have to disagree with that. This entire storyline was crucial for the development of Daemon's character, which we were able to explore because of it. Every scene where he has hallucinations was interesting and significant. It seems to me that many people have forgotten what Martin's storylines are built on. People clearly want to see action, dragons, and epic battles, but that's just the icing on the cake. Game of Thrones was always fundamentally about well-written dialogue that allowed us to learn more about the characters. Things like action and dragons mean nothing on their own, which we saw in the last season of Game of Thrones, where there were plenty of dragons and epic battles, but none of it worked. The reason why the battle in the new season of House of the Dragon worked so well is that it was preceded by several episodes consisting mainly of well-written dialogue that effectively established the characters' motivations, so when they finally clashed in the battle, it had weight. Last thing I want to discuss in this video is what George R.R. Martin said about respecting the source material. I watched this video by Valeritas last week. Here's a short excerpt from it.
Right before the second season of House of the Dragon premiered, George Martin shared an interesting blog post about how some screenwriters and producers approach adapting great stories. Everywhere you look, there are more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them their own. It doesn't seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, or Tolkien. No matter how major a writer it is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks he can do better, eager to take the story and improve on it. The book is the book, the film is the film, they will tell you, as if they were saying something profound. They never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. And as one might expect, this blog post sparked quite a bit of controversy. While some fans speculated that Martin might have been subtly criticizing the House of the Dragon writers, others argued that the first season was so well done that Martin wouldn't possibly be criticizing them. However, here we are, and after Season 2, Episode 6, I believe this blog post is indeed a shade towards the show's writers. In fact, Martin's recent blog post about dragons further proves that there are aspects of the show that he found quite problematic. In that blog post, Martin briefly wrote this: "My dragons are predators. They can hunt their own prey, but they are also territorial. You won't find dragons hunting the Riverlands or the Reach or the Vale. Fantasy needs to be grounded. If you ignore canon, the world you have created comes apart like tissue paper." This post, much like the first one, becomes even more meaningful with episode 6. Because in that episode, Rhaena spots a riderless dragon hunting down in the Vale, which directly contradicts Martin's description of how his dragons should behave.
I highly recommend watching the whole video, it's really interesting, but what I wanted to talk about is this. What George R.R. Martin said is obviously very true, and I agree with it 100%. It's just a bit annoying for me that I and several others have been saying this since 2019 when the first season of The Witcher Netflix show came out, and the series was still massively popular. Back then, whenever I mentioned it, I often had to argue with so many idiots. I even had to leave many online fan groups because you just couldn't criticize the show without everyone piling up on you. But now when someone like George R.R. Martin says it, everyone is suddenly like, no, he's got a point. So what I'm trying to say here is that it would have been nice if people had acknowledged this back then, and if the Game of Thrones author had spoken up about this earlier, not just when it's safe 5 years later. So that's everything for this video. See you next time.